I'm Greg Powell, and this is Investors Insights.
You're listening to Investors Insights with Greg Powell, Certified Investment Management Analyst and President and CEO of Five Plan Partners.
Rolling in 3, 2.
Today I'm talking about the what-ifs of the market, the economy. Before I get into it, though, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to our blog. Simply type in your email address to the right of the video and click submit. If you're listening to this as a podcast, subscribe in iTunes or your podcast provider. This way you can stay up to date on important financial and market information that we have for you each week. So now let's talk about what if. What if things don't get better in the world? Now, where am I coming from on that? And what's the impact to your portfolio? There's a lot of bad news out there. The European countries are fighting in terms of the euro, and they're dealing with their currency on multiple levels, not only from an economic standpoint, but also from a political standpoint. What if that doesn't get better? Then we could very well see Europe start to really battle deflation, which initially would not impact the United States. Although let me say this, the United States has been fighting deflation on their own in a whole nother way. The what if here is that because of the baby boom generation aging, because as people age, they distribute assets as compared to accumulating them. So therefore, they're not buying as much. And number two, technology is coming through and changing the way we do business, changing the way products are made. A whole range of things is taking place. So the what if is that suppose from the standpoint the baby boom generation is continuing to age, technology continues to exponentially get better and better. Well, how does that impact us? Well, we experience deflation as well. Not necessarily, but it's one of those things that we need to caution about as we move forward. The what ifs in terms of also internationally, Vladimir Putin is on the radar screen. You know, Vladimir has been called the richest man in Russia, but at the same time, his country may very well go bankrupt. People don't realize with the sanctions that we've placed on Russia because of their aggressiveness towards the Ukraine, that those sanctions are having a huge economic impact on Russia and really slowing that economy down. Could we see things unravel in Russia? That's a what if that we're looking for. On ISIS, the scenario there, if that continues to get out of control, how do we reconfigure our whole strategy in the Mideast? And speaking of Mideast, you've also got to understand the whole energy situation. Number one, by 2020, the United States will be the largest exporter of energy in the world. At the same time, it's interesting to note, and you need to start tracking this, Israel will move up the scale and could very well become number 2 or 3 in the world as the biggest exporter of energy. Guess who would start supplying more energy to Europe? If Europe receives more of their energy from Israel, then from the standpoint, the whole Mideast scenario and dynamics will change again, as well as the fact Europeans will embrace Israel even more. So the political scenario as well as the economic scenario will continue to change. We're watching that, but let's go back to a what if. What if we do see in the United States a rippling effect of deflation from Europe? Well, the point I want to make here is that people forget that right now, in terms of 21st century industries, 90% of the internet companies in the world are based in the United States. 90% of software makers are based in the United States. The point I'm making that technology may bring the price of things down, but the United States is the leader in technology, and therefore we actually would reap the benefit of that. So impacting our economy being the largest exporter of energy, and then also from the standpoint of the technological advances occurring, still puts the United States, as I like to say, the best house in a bad neighborhood. You know, China, we look at and go, wow, what tremendous growth they've had. But if you really analyze China, the Chinese are just trying to stay ahead of things. With their population explosion that they've had and the fact that they don't have the jobs to really provide to their population, really China is not the powerhouse that they have tried to make it seem like they are. So we don't view China as big a threat as a lot of people have talked about in years past. Remember in the 1980s when we talked about Japan was going to eat the United States lunch? Well, guess what? China has been in this decade the very same scenario, and we don't believe that what if is going to come about. The biggest what if on China would be, if their economy really starts to slow, what impact would we have? Now, the point I want to make to you is that I've run you through a lot of what ifs. And that's the kind of conversation we're having in Portfolio Strategies at Five Plan Partners. We are going at each other back and forth, what if this happens? And we challenge each other to come up with rebuttals or to come up with data that supports it, so that then we can tie it to the portfolios and how it could impact your portfolio, whether the market's up or down. We've seen the market come down here in 2014. We've had a bounce up, but understand the market's kind of in that pattern like a bouncing ball right now. We think that you're going to have some ups and downs as we go through this year end in 2014. Now, that said, I hope that this hadn't so much answered questions for you, but it's gotten you to ask more questions so that in our dialogues, we can continue having this discussion, but also from the standpoint you understand how we work here at Five Plan Partners to look at all aspects and situations. If you're not having conversation with your current financial advisor, if you don't work with us here at Five Plan Partners, maybe that needs to be a red flag for you. For those of you that are here, you should have seen our vlog. You should have gotten our letter here recently about the downturn in the market and things we're looking at, which are other what ifs. And then in addition to that, just know we're going to keep you informed. Thanks for joining me. Hope this has been helpful, and we'll keep you updated. Thanks.
More information at fiplanpartners.com. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC.